So while I was on the interwebs not too long ago, I was thinking to myself, what are some good BB-8 fanfictions out there? And luckily, fanfiction.net came through for me. So I found this one called The Little Knight by Forever Delighted, and it's about BB-8 and Kylo and Rey. So let's get to it. He was not an aggressive droid. No, behavior such as running around wildly frying organic creatures on the whim was not in his programming. And yet, here BB-8 found himself rolling out from the shrubbery, stealthily heading towards the dark-cloaked figure illuminated by the eerie red glow of his crossed lightsaber. One of his retractable arms was extended, his laser poised and ready. In front of the masked hair stood his cherished friend Rey. The radiant soft blue of her lightsaber shone down on her tan skin, reflected brightly in her hazel eyes. The edges of her white cloak fluttered around her, strands of rebellious hair whipping around her face. I wish I had rebellious hair. I don't have rebellious hair. Maybe one day. Okay. They were old foes now, two knights who stood on opposing fields, one of light and one of darkness. They were pointing their weapons directly at their nemesis, both glaring at the other. The tension crackled through the air, heavy and dangerous. At any moment, either one of them could break their standoff, and a deadly battle of blazing red and blue lights can erupt from the clamor of clashing. So much for working together, BB-8 thought grimly. Off in the distance, the sound of explosions rocked the planet. The threat of their approach loomed. BB-8 let out a panicked beat. If they didn't get off this planet soon, they were going to end up dead. Instead of continuing to run, however, the Dark Knight refused to budge. He had decided that now, out of all times, would be the perfect opportunity to confront the Jedi Knight on more personal business. What that was, BB-8 wasn't sure. He had only heard snippets of their arguments as they had raced through the jungle terrain, trying to escape the imploding First Order's new base. The base's demise wasn't what they were arguing about. BB-8 was mildly surprised Kylo Ren wasn't angry at Rey for that. She was the catalyst who allowed its destruction, having infiltrated it and planted the bombs along with the little droid. Well, maybe he was angry about it. In fact, he probably was. BB-8 knew of the Sith's infamous temper and doubted such a loss that would no doubt anger his master to a blood-boiling degree, would not flare the man's rage. Whatever they had been bickering furiously about was obviously deemed more high up on the Sith's agenda. What could it be? BB-8 mused. If only he had heard the whole conversation. But alas, he had been too busy trying to keep up with the long-legged creatures, a difficult feat when he himself had no legs and had to maneuver his way around obstacles that they could easily leap over. This is not the time nor the place to be discussing this, Kylo, Rey shouted, the voice of rational reason. Then when? The next time you and band of merry little traitors decide to attempt to destroy another of the First Order's bases? Kylo bit out, voice distorted through his mask. Rey frowned at the sound of it. BB-8 knew how much she detested the man's mask. BB-8 shared the sentiment. Then again, he hated the man entirely. There is no attempt, Rey retorted. We will. The ground shook, BB-8 swirling around as he tried to keep steady. He looked at the two knights pleadingly, wishing they would stop their pointless bickering and just move. They could argue to their heart's content on the ship, when they were far away from the explosion's range. Your delusional optimism is breathtaking, Kylo replied dryly. How have you survived this long? I will never understand. With weak enemies such as yourself, it's hardly that difficult, Rey taunted. Rey? Kylo gritted out, grip tightening on his weapon. There was another series of fiery explosions, much closer this time. The sound was deafening. Frightening winged creatures took off into the sky in fright. Oh, for force's sake, deactivate your lightsaber. This is madness. You're going to get us all killed. We are not leaving here until we sort out what is between us. BB-8 froze. Between them? What? What was between them? Alarmed, he let out a frantic wave of beeps, desperate to know. What does he mean by that, Rey? The two humans ignored him, and he let out a wailing beep. Rey, what does he mean? Many implications jolted through the droid's little circuits in rapid processions, each one more concerning than the last. What does he mean? BB-8 beeped. There is nothing between us. There has never been and never will be. Good. That's good to hear, BB-8 thought with a nod of his head. Of course there's nothing between them. He was just letting his overactive programming get ahead of him. Silly, silly, silly. Ray would never do something as foolish as fraternizing with the enemy, and especially not Kylo Ren of all people. Kylo snorted. He unlatched his mask, pulling it off. You know as well as I that there is something between us, something neither of us can run from, Ray said quietly, shaking his head. I can feel it every time you're close by. Even when you're galaxies away, I can still feel it, tugging at me to find you. BB-8 rolled his head, his version of rolling his eyes. Ray had obviously hit him one too many times over the head with her retractable staff. He was talking nonsense. He really wished she'd hurry up and knock him over the head again so they could escape the rapidly deteriorating planet. Every time I'm able to hold you in my arms. BB-8 perked at that. Hold her in his arms? What? Every time we kiss. Kiss? BB-8 shook his head, backing away from Kylo Ren as though physically repelled. Kiss? Kiss? What kiss? When did they? How did they? This does not compute. I can feel our connection flare to life. I never want to part from you. BB-8 stood motionless, his sensors shocked. He didn't react as Kylo deactivated his lightsaber, nor when Rey did the same with hers. If he was able to register what she had did then, he would have thought she had gone mad and signed her up for counseling. He didn't move as Kylo Ren approached Rey, nor when he placed his hand on the side of Rey's face, his other on her arm pulling her closer. Rey, I love you, Kylo whispered, his breath upon her lips. The Jedi closed her eyes, shutting off the bitter conflict behind them from view. She swallowed, biting her lip. Please, Rey, just come with me. To the little droid, the words sounded like distorted static. But as soon as he replayed them in his head again and again, their meaning became clear. Come with him? To go with him would mean going to the dark side. She'd be leaving the light, plunging into the world of hatred, anger, and suffering. She'd be twisted into a monster, like Kylo, a loveless, cruel, and merciless killer. No. He looked up, seeing Kylo's lips about to descend upon Rey's. Not on your life, buddy. BB-8 let out a shrill battle cry, ripping the lovers' attention away from each other to behind them. Their notice came too late. BB-8 had fired up his laser and crashed straight into Kylo Ren, zapping him with every ounce of energy he had stored in him. He would not let this fiend take away Rey. Rey was his friend, his sunshine. He was her protector, her faithful companion. It was his mission to protect her. He would not fail. Kylo let out a cry of pain, falling to his knees. BB-8 warped his beats into a vicious growl, sounding more like a wild beast than a droid. Blue light sparked brightly from his laser as he rammed into Kylo's side. Kylo collapsed, letting out a miserable groan. The smell of scorched and singed flesh wafted through the breeze. BB-8 growled threateningly once more, content he had defeated the villain. He retracted his laser, swirling around with a gleeful purr to see his dear friend, whom was looking at him in utter horror. Rey, what's wrong? Are you hurt? BB-8 beeped, whirling around, scanning for any sign of injury. Nope, she was clear. So what was wrong? Maybe she was just stunned, not to Kylo Ren's degree, but stunned nonetheless at his heroic deed. Maybe he had been like a brave and valiant knight, protecting the fair princess from the villain's dastardly clutches. Not that she needed a knight to save her, but he was her sidekick, there to help her should the tables ever turn on her. Rey looked at the little droid, mouth gaping open and eyes wide. Her hazel orbs glanced over the rather smoky Kylo, then back to the harmless-looking droid. Master Luke was right about appearances being deceptive, Rey murmured, more to herself. They both nearly stumbled to the ground when another explosion only a few yards away rocked the planet. We should go, BB-8 told her. Rey came out of her daze, running a hand through her hair. She looked like she had a lot to say but bit it down. Whatever it was, it could wait. They had to get off this planet. Right, good idea. She let out an irritable groan as she looked at her unconscious nemesis. She approached him, earning her a bewildered beat from BB-8. "What are you doing? Leave him." "We can't. He'll die if he stays here," Ray snapped, pulling Kylo's arm over her shoulder and heaving him up with a groan. "How is that a problem?" "That isn't very nice, BB-8, Ray scolded, sluggishly moving in the direction of the Millennium Falcon. "And? He isn't very nice. When we get back to the ship, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about appropriate times to use your laser." BB-8 shook his head, rolling after her. He couldn't believe it. Was he in trouble? What had he done? He was innocent of all wrongdoings. BB-8 growled at Kylo's limp form. Kylo's words echoed through BB-8's circuits. "We are not leaving here until we sort out what is between us." They finally reached the ship, Ray, much to BB-8's delight, dumping Kylo ungraciously on the floor. He landed with a crash, letting out a pained moan. BB-8 snickered. "BB-8, secure him with your cables to the wall or something," Ray shouted as she flung herself to the pilot's seat, rapidly flicking switches and igniting the engine. "Even when your galaxy's away, I can still feel it, tugging at me to find you." His words were there again, enticing BB-8 to hiss. "BB-8, secure him! Now!" BB-8 let out an annoyed series of beeps, but complied. He rolled into Kylo, struggling to shove the man's dead weight against the wall. He unleashed a cable that bolted to a panel on the wall, and then bolted himself to the floor, keeping Kylo securely in place between him and the wall. "Every time I'm able to hold you in my arms." BB-8 jolted forward a bit as Ray took off, the Falcon lurching into the air. He tightened his cables. The ship was shuddering, debris from the explosions crashing into the outer shell. If he didn't keep a tight hold, then Kylo was going to end up going for a very nasty ride, every time we kissed. He had no doubt would get quite a few nasty injuries, well deserved if anyone asked BB-8. "Ray, I love you." Something in BB-8 snapped. He slowly glanced down at the unconscious man, a man who would show no mercy to him or anyone else, a man who had hurt his master Poe, a man who wanted to take away his sunshine. It was too tempting. BB-8 released the cables. Oops. Kylo went tumbling. With every twist and jerk Ray made to avoid the ship being hit by flying debris, Kylo went crashing into something. BB-8 made sure to attach himself securely to the wall, watching with glee as Kylo got a bit of his just rewards. He beeped away contently, enjoying the show and recording it for later viewing. Poe and Finn would love to see this. After 10 minutes of fantastic entertainment, Ray was finally able to steer the ship to safety, ending the droid's sadistic fun. She put the ship on autopilot and turned around to see what all the noise had been. Her hand flew to her mouth. Kylo's bruised body was lying in the center of the ship, looking very much like a rag doll that had seen better days. "You were supposed to secure him, BB-8. She had made her way over to Kylo, kneeling down beside him and pulling him up so his head rested on her lap. BB-8 inwardly scowled at that. Kylo let out a groan, rubbing his aching head. "I didn't think your flying skills were that bad, Ray," Kylo muttered. "Looks like you could be doing with a flying teacher as well." Ray gently punched him in the shoulder, earning her a smirk from the dark night. BB-8 didn't care for that smirk. Ray should have punched him harder, preferably in the face. Kylo's gaze turned towards the fuming little droid. He quirked an eyebrow, then smirked that annoying smirk of his again. BB-8 saw the glimmer of mischief in his eyes. That snaggy-haired Vader wannabe was up to something. Kylo turned his attention back to Ray, one hand cupping her cheek. He leaned up and placed his lips upon hers in a chaste, gentle kiss. BB-8's vision turned red. He let out a shriek and bolted forward, laser extended and sparking. Okay. Kylo was ready this time and put one hand up, conjuring the Force. BB-8 found himself crashing into an invisible wall. He tried again, beeping madly with each failed attempt to get through. Finally, Kylo pulled back from Ray, both breathless. "I don't think your droid likes me," BB-8 practically snarled. He didn't know what spell Ray was under, but he would break her from it. Kylo Ren had made a dangerous enemy. He seemed to forget that they had a long flight to the next planet. Kylo couldn't keep up his guard forever, especially not with his apparent love being in such close vicinity. His feelings for Rey could be exploited. He let his guard down around her, and that was when he would make a strike. It was only a matter of time. BB-8's laser crackled in anticipation. Okay. Cool! Okay, so... Oh my gosh, this is so cool! I really like this. This is, I don't know if I said it before, but this is by a lad or person named Forever Delighted on fanfiction.net. I thought this was so cool and groovy. I loved it. I'm honestly not too familiar with the Star Wars universe, really, but I do think BB-8 is really cute and all that jazz. But I think the only thing I was wondering about was if Kylo was getting stabbed, why didn't he bleed? Do Jedis bleed? Or something? I don't know. But it was a good read, and I highly encourage everybody to check it out. So, yeah. Thanks!